Casual Magic is about how we can find beauty in the mundane parts of every day. We all look forward to the 1% of days in our lives that are extraordinary. The wedding, the birthday, the job promotion, but 99% of our days are just ordinary. And wouldn't it be sad if we only allowed ourselves to feel joy 1% of the time? Hi everyone, and welcome to Finding Your Casual Magic. Today we are talking about one of the most difficult topics in the human experience: heartbreak. We're going to answer questions like, how do we heal healthily? How do we tend to cope with heartbreak culturally? And how can we use breakups as an opportunity for self-learning and deepening our inner power? And from that heartbreak and healing, when is the right time to maybe open your heart again to making new, incredible connections? I realize this topic might feel a bit misaligned with the lovey-dovey time with Valentine's Day around the corner, but honestly, heartbreak can happen anytime. I mean, for me, I went through a breakup like a week after Valentine's Day last year. If you've clicked on this episode, maybe you're going through a heartbreak yourself, maybe you're considering breaking up with someone, or maybe you're just feeling a sense of loss and grief in your life. I just want to open this space for you as somewhere warm and safe to explore these really difficult topics. And if you're feeling a little bit low today, I want to send you a virtual hug. These things are hard for everyone, and I really hope that you take something valuable away from this that makes you feel better. I have created a step-by-step guide to getting you through heartbreak in a way that can use this moment of vulnerability to really transform your relationship to yourself, for all your future relationships to come, and to really regain this personal power. Having gone through one of the most difficult breakups of my life last year, this episode comes from a very personal place, and all of it is just the advice that I wish I had heard. But as always, I want every single solo episode to also be equipped with research and insights and analysis from the world. And hopefully you can just come away with a new perspective on how to deal with these really difficult emotions. But as always, before we dive into the heart of the episode, I love to begin every single episode by asking you to ground yourself, to be here with intentionality, and to use this next 40 minutes to an hour or so to really just be present, to switch off the endless stream of notifications, to maybe put do not disturb mode on, and to really let this episode affect you in the way that it needs to. And I often find that I get the most out of long form content when I'm fully engaged with it. So I'm going to invite you to meditate with me for the next 60 to 90 seconds. And if you've never done a meditation before, I promise it's not scary. We're just going to breathe for a second. I hope you come back feeling lighter and clearer. Take a second to notice where you are in space. Are you in a room? If so, how big is the room? Are you outside? What can you see? And if you feel comfortable to do so, gently close your eyes. Start to become aware of your breathing. Notice where you can feel the breath in your body, maybe noticing the rise of your chest and belly at the inhale, and fall on the exhale. Imagine yourself rooting down into the ground, feeling grounded and aware. And maybe notice if you're carrying tension anywhere in your body. If you can, try to allow that tension to release at the exhale. We're going to do a final 4, 6, 8 breath, where you'll take a deep inhale for 4, hold it for 6, and then exhale for 8. So when you're ready, deep inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold at the top for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and big exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Welcome to the episode. Step 1 of how to deal with heartbreak is the most important. If you take anything away from this episode, I hope it is step 1. Step 1 is acceptance. I don't know if you're familiar with the idea of the 5 stages of grief, but it's often said that the first stage of grief is denial. But actually, when it comes to heartbreak, which is another form of loss, I want you to consciously embrace the opposite. I want you to radically accept the heartbreak that you've been given. The most crucial component of acceptance is having clarity. A lot of us will go through a half breakup where you don't really know what your relationship is anymore. Perhaps you go on a break. Perhaps you have an argument, and in the heat of the moment you say that you're going to break up, but then you mend the relationship again, but you kind of know that you're half broken up, but you haven't really discussed it again. A lot of us end up in positions where we don't know what our relationship is anymore. And when you don't have clarity, it's hard to start any form of healing. I've got some crazy hot take stats for you. While some breakups have a clear ending, 50% of 18 to 34-year-olds have been in situationships, according to a 2024 YouGov survey conducted in the US. There are so many reasons to be in situationships, but one of the main downsides is ambiguity. What is the relationship? Does it have a potential future? Are you as into me as I'm into you? There's so much uncertainty, and uncertainty leads to potential pain because you have mismatched expectations. And because of all this ambiguity about what your relationship is, what it means, how everyone feels, this translates into a lack of clarity, and that lack of clarity can result in difficulty accepting what your relationship even was, and then accepting how you should feel when it ends, or what an ending even looks like in this context. And even for people who have been in more official relationships, there can still be so many complications when it comes to a breakup. Who is ending it? Why it's ending? How entangled your lives together? Do you live together? Do you have the same friends? Are you going to keep texting? Are you going to keep working together? Every breakup is so unique, and that's why it's very difficult to give straight advice on how to accept what your breakup looks like, because every single person's situation is different. We're all going to handle it differently. As well as all of this, ghosting has become an increasingly popular way to end romantic situations. And according to an article posted by the Thriving Center of Psychology in 2023, about 1 in 4 people have been ghosted after their first date or after a couple of dates. And shockingly, 1 in 10 shared that they've been ghosted after a couple of months of dating, which is heartbreaking and also so common. The number of friends I know who have developed feelings for someone, who have been dating for multiple months, and then all of a sudden the connection will just fizzle out because the other person stops replying. That is its own form of heartbreak, because you don't have any closure. It's something that you have to mourn on your own, and there's so many assumptions there. You're assuming that the relationship has died. You have to assume the reasons as to why that person doesn't want to be with you anymore. If there is one hard lesson that I can imprint on you in this episode, it is that clarity is peace. Clarity is self-respect. Clarity is what you need in order to heal, in order to find the love that you want. And sometimes you have to give yourself that clarity. So in the case of the ghosting, unfortunately, that is up to you to take their half-heartedness, their lack of effort, as a sign of what they want the relationship to be. You have to give yourself that closure and clarity. And the sooner that you can accept the future of what the relationship looks like, the more quickly that you can move on and you can find someone who really deserves the love that you have to give. If you've ever gone through something that I would call a half breakup, you would know that it is the most painful and exhilarating thing that you can possibly experience. I'm talking about the kind of breakup where the door still feels half open. Maybe you still text a little bit. Maybe you still meet up occasionally. Maybe you still sleep together. Maybe you've broken up multiple times and you've gotten back together again. You don't know what the future of your relationship holds. Everything's a mess, but it's also so fun and such a whirlwind because you really like this person and you're harboring so much hope and expectations about what it can be. I think it's so difficult to give yourself clarity because that would be admitting the potential pain of losing them, right? Like when you're in a half breakup stage, you're driven by the hope that it still can be something more and that they do care about you enough for that potential future to exist. But let me tell you, it's not worth it in the long run. If you're listening to this and you are in a messy half situationship thing, it's not worth it in the long run. It's only going to keep causing you pain. The uncertainty is the pain. Give yourself peace, give yourself clarity. Being in the in-between state is being in a place of begging for scraps. The scraps of what a full, whole relationship could be. It's being in a place of watching their Instagram story to try and work out how they're feeling about you, working out if they're moving on, if they're seeing other people. It's spending nights, feeling so anxious about your place in this person's life. And let me tell you, anxiety is not love. Anxiety is not peace. Clarity in relationships, that is a type of ease and joy that is irreplaceable. And I want it for any of you who are in a messy situation to really sit with yourselves and ask yourself what you're missing out on by staying in a situation that doesn't serve you, that doesn't meet all your needs, that gives you a lot of anxiety and a lack of trust. And for whatever it's worth, I want you to know that a gut feeling is a good enough reason to break up with someone. So often when we're in relationships or situationships, we think that we need to have a really good justification for the end. In the movies, we often see very tangible reasons as to why people are choosing to break up. So, for example, your partner has cheated on you. They've done something awful that's resulted in a full-blown argument. But most of the time in life, relationships are a lot more nuanced, and you might just have a gut feeling, an intuition, a sense that something about this relationship isn't fulfilling, doesn't make you the happiest version of yourself. That in itself is reason enough to break up with them and to choose that feeling and to choose your peace and the potential of what you could find in a future relationship. That was the case for me last year. I broke up with my boyfriend of almost 4 years, who was genuinely like my best friend, my growth partner, someone who I did love and to this day have so much love for. But for the last year and a half of our relationship, I just started to have this niggling feeling that I couldn't get away from, that it wasn't the right relationship for me, and that there were parts of myself that I was denying by staying in this relationship. With him, I could live a good life, but I was denying the potential for an extraordinary life. I voiced this to him multiple times in our relationship, kind of my doubts, my uncertainty, and we actively worked on a lot of the things in our relationship to try and make it better. The fact that he was so proactive in trying to improve the relationship made it even more painful to then listen to that feeling, because he was doing nothing wrong on the surface. It was a really good relationship. But ever since I listened to the gut feeling, acted upon it, and chose to end that relationship, my life and his life have only gotten better, because you cannot suppress a feeling, you cannot lie to a feeling forever, and a feeling is enough to warrant changing both of your lives and choosing the potential for a better life. You can also think that your reason for breaking up with someone is intuition, but it might also actually be fear. It might be fear of commitment. And the reason that I voice this is because I'm naturally quite an avoidant person. I have really struggled to commit to relationships in the past. If you feel like you're breaking up with someone because of fear of the unknown, then rather than pushing them away because of all the uncertainty that a relationship could involve, try and seek clarity. Try not to run. Try to sit with this person that you like and try and let them into your fear. Be vulnerable with them. Tell them how it feels when you imagine being in a committed relationship. Try and articulate that discomfort, because that's the vulnerability that you can really build a relationship on. Being in a relationship is terrifying. Committing to people is terrifying, and it's very natural to be scared of the potential of what that relationship could become and allowing yourself to potentially be hurt. It's a very vulnerable thing to let someone so close to your heart. So really interrogate your reasons for breaking up with someone. Are they rooted in intuition, or are they rooted in fear of the unknown, fear of the future? And maybe deliberate with friends. You can journal, you can go to therapy. If you're in a moment of uncertainty, part of getting clarity and acceptance is enlisting the help of others, of third perspectives. And if you have decided that a breakup is what you need to do, if you have accepted the breakup that someone else has given you, then we're in for a roller coaster of emotions. Which brings me on to step 2. Equally as important as step 1, equally as difficult, especially in a culture that prizes productivity over feeling one's feelings, is you need to feel your feelings. You need to accept that a breakup is its own form of grief. It is its own form of loss. And you cannot magic away the sadness that you feel in losing this relationship. However the breakup occurred, it can lead to a lot of feelings of self-rejection, loneliness, a lot of dark feelings within oneself. And so while step 1 is about acceptance of the breakup's occurrence, step 2 is all about accepting your feelings. Accepting that processing this breakup can take a while. There's no defined amount of time, unfortunately. The only way to get through a breakup is to sit in the feelings, to go through rather than around. There are 2 really beautiful quotes that come to mind here. It hurts because it mattered, and that is John Green. And I love the idea that sadness sits right next to love. Most of the time we feel sadness because we're losing something that we love. Trust is choosing to make something important to you vulnerable to the actions of someone else. Charles Feldman. Unfortunately, you have to let your healing time take as long as you need. And this is very individual. I don't know if you've heard this phrase that, oh, however long you were in a relationship for, just halve that. And that's the time that it's going to take you to process the relationship. But unfortunately, from experience, that is very untrue. I think that you can have been in a relationship with someone for days or weeks, and it can affect you profoundly for years based on the depth of that connection and how it ended. But equally, you could have been in a relationship for years and have quite a smooth breakup, an amicable breakup. You must recognize that your situation is unique, and so the way that you move through the feelings after a breakup will similarly be unique. This is a time to be brave. It is a time to let people in. It's a time to lean on our friends, to reach out to them for support. I remember that when I went through my breakup, I was very tempted to deal with it in a hyper-independent way and to navigate my feelings alone or to lean on work. But I really challenged myself to reach out to friends and express how I was feeling. When you're vulnerable, you're normally met with support and vulnerability in return. And I had friends showing up to my door with dinner and ice cream and sitting with me as I would just cry. Well, I had absolutely nothing to give them. They would just sit with me through those feelings. And those are some of the moments that have deepened my friendships the most, is when I've allowed them to see me at my worst. If you are someone who has a tendency to lean on work to distract away your feelings, I would really invite you to try and scale down your work to the extent that you can. Cancel any huge projects, or maybe inform your workplace that you're going through a personal issue, to really give yourself that time and space to sit with your feelings as they are and process them. Equally, you don't want to just wallow. You don't want to just, sit in the heaviness all the time. So it's about trying to find this balance where you're not suppressing the difficult things that are coming up, but you're also not halting your life fully. You're allowing yourself to still do things you enjoy, go to parties, see the people you love. And I think, again, that balance is very individual. So how did I find my version of balance after my breakup last year? So the way that my breakup happened was I went to visit 2 of my best friends, and they basically just probed into my life and into my relationship until I realized that I really wanted to break up with him. I was just far too scared to do it. And so they were the ones that inspired me to make the change. And then I left this very supportive environment of being with my friends and went home to this bedroom alone. And so it was really difficult because I had to basically move through a lot of these feelings on my own. The first thing I remember doing was going through my camera roll, going through the highlights reel of my relationship, And I really recommend appreciating all the positive times for what they were, no matter how your relationship ended, whether you feel a lot of anger or sadness now. You are with them for a reason, and there will have been so many beautiful times that you can reminisce on. And I think really giving yourself the time and space to appreciate those moments will make it even easier to eventually move on. As you know, I'm a video person, and for me, video is my catharsis. I make videos all the time that you guys never see. So I made an entire video about my relationship, collated all the videos from the last 3.5 years that I had, and poured all my feelings into that piece. Whatever the process looks like for you, I think you need your own form of catharsis, whether that's journaling, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's creating something. Find a practice that lets you move those feelings into something physical. After my breakup, I moved to London literally 1 week after, and it was one of the loneliest times of my life. I was in a new city, in a new apartment with a corporate lawyer who was literally never there, so I felt like I lived alone. But it was a really transformative time because I learned the lesson of valuing my feelings and emotions and realizing how much there is to learn about yourself when you don't wish away your feelings. No matter what you're feeling, whatever sadness comes up, if you can meet that sadness with acceptance, you have so much learning and power to come. I personally think it is your responsibility when you're going through a breakup to let people help you. It is up to you to tell your friends how you're feeling and to ask for what you need. Because how are your friends going to know that you need help and support unless you ask them? People aren't mind readers. You need to have the strength to ask for the help that you need. And my biggest piece of advice, okay, so you know when you've just gone through a breakup and more than anything, you want to text your ex. You're seeing things around the city that are reminding you of them. You're seeing reels on Instagram that you would normally send to them. All the time, you're interacting with stimuli that remind you of this person, and you have to retrain your brain and your habit patterns to not text them. The best way to do that is to set up a system of accountability with someone in your life that you will text whenever you wanted to text your ex. So say, for example, you see a chocolate in the shop that was your ex's favorite chocolate. And normally you would have taken a photo of it and sent it to your partner and been like, oh my God, your favorite chocolate. In that moment, I would take a photo of the chocolate and I would send it to my accountability friend. And I'd be like, oh, this is the chocolate that they would have loved. And that's a moment for your friend to validate the thing that you've sent. So you're receiving the dopamine that you would have gotten from texting your partner, and for your friend to notice that this is a moment you need support. For a friend to text you and say, well done for not texting them. Thank you for sending me this. And that was just life-changing for me, because you're always one text away from ruining the progress that you've made. One text away from re-entering back into a half-breakup situation. So stay strong, set up those systems of accountability, and really lean on your friends for that support. And as you're navigating this step of feeling your feelings, I want you to remember this key message. No relationship is a waste of time. No matter how the relationship ended, no matter how painful it feels right now, no matter what future you thought you would have together that no longer exists, it was all worth it. Because you've learned how to communicate healthily, or you've started to learn that skill. You've learned infinite things about yourself in this relationship with someone else, and you've probably learned a lot about setting boundaries, and you're learning how to navigate heartbreak, which is one of the most powerful skills in life, because unfortunately life is full of loss, is full of grief, is full of things not going how we want. So this is just such an important moment for you to reflect on all the growth you've had because of this person. And I really love thinking about relationships as a mirror. It's only when we get really close to someone else that we're able to see all of our own imperfections. We see the parts of ourselves that we don't like mirrored back to us in how we treat the other person, in things we do that are maybe unideal. Maybe you're messier than you realize that you are, or maybe you don't text back as quickly as you could. But that's beautiful because it's all self-learning. You might not see the direct productive impacts of just sitting around and crying, but I want you to know that any time you spend sitting and processing your feelings is evidence of love. Step 3, we're starting to get out of the heart and a little bit more into the head. So as you've processed the biggest feelings, as you're starting to get some distance from the breakup, it's really important to start to reflect on it more rationally and use your experiences to heal, to notice your own patterns, and to use that to inform your future relationships. I really recommend 2 resources. The first is a deck called We're Not Really Strangers. Don't know if you've heard of it. It's a really popular card game, like a deep question card game, but they have specifically a breakup deck, and it's a game that you can play with yourself. You draw a card and it will ask you a question related to your breakup. The questions range, everything from what did you love most about your partner? What did you love most about how they made you feel? What are some behaviors that you think you had in that relationship that you don't want to carry into the next one? And the second resource that I would recommend is a wonderful book called How to Love Better by Young Pueblo. It's an exploration of love, all of our relationships, how we can show up better for our partners, but also there is a really rich chapter in there all about heartbreak and how to heal from it in a productive way and why that's so important to the future of your relationships. Very excitingly, I will be interviewing Young Pueblo next week for an episode all about relationships, so I'm very excited for that. The link to pre-order that book is down below. It's genuinely such a phenomenal book. Now, why is step 3 so important? Why is it so essential to reflect? Well, until you rationally sit with your experiences, you will keep repeating the same patterns. You will keep subconsciously choosing similar types of people until you learn what you actually deserve, until you realize what you actually need and want in your relationships. There's a really famous quote that says, "Those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it." And perhaps you were accepting a relationship where your partner never asked about your interests, never asked how your day was, or just didn't do things to make you feel loved. And unless you consciously reflect on the fact that you let yourself be treated like that you chose a relationship where someone didn't take an active interest in you, then you are likely to accept a similar love again. You need to go away and question what kind of love you really want, what you are willing to accept, and that is the one that you're more likely to attract in the future. It's the one you're more likely to demand. And if you notice yourself falling for someone who does have these patterns that you want to avoid, you can notice that, you can be conscious of it, and you can choose not to follow the same pattern again. So for example, one of the questions in the We're Not Really Strangers deck is, were you looking for the wrong qualities in a partner? That is a difficult question to answer because it requires humility and a lack of defensiveness to honestly admit that you might have chosen to be with someone who doesn't treat you how you deserve. I was having a really vulnerable conversation with a friend about a week ago, and she was expressing her huge realization that she has consistently gone for men who don't value her worth. And she was attracted to this guy in Berlin. He had a girlfriend, so he wasn't available to her, but she was really compelled by him. And she just found out the other day that this guy had cheated on his girlfriend repeatedly and was just basically a really awful boyfriend to her. And my friend had this moment of realizing that could have been her. She could have been the girlfriend that was cheated on because she felt attracted to this guy. And it really shook her up because she was like, why is it that I am compelled by the kind of guy who cheats on his girlfriend? Why am I attracted to this bad boy stereotype? She went to therapy about it, did some reflection, realized that other types of guys she'd gone for had similar patterns. But now she knows that that is a red flag, that that is not something she's going to go for in the future. And that's what this reflection stage is all about. It's about noticing, writing it down, making it conscious so that when it comes up again, you can make a different choice and perhaps choose something more peaceful, something that's going to serve you better, something that's going to elevate you in the future. When I was talking to my friend, we started to unpack how her definition of love was rooted in a fantasy of emotional ups and downs and roller coasters and wonderful experiences of pleasure. But was it really love, or was it just anxiety? When you are constantly questioning if someone loves you, that is often just anxiety. And we came to the conclusion that what she needs to search for is a love that feels peaceful, a love that almost feels boring, a love that feels like best friendship and makes her nervous system feel at ease. Because even if that type of love might seem more boring, that is the kind of enduring love that forms the most precious relationships. My friend probably wouldn't know how to go out and find that supportive love if we hadn't taken the time to have this chat, reflect on her past relationships, and come to this conclusion about what is best for her. So it's so important when you've gone through a breakup, take the time to reflect on how it's shaped you, what served you, what didn't. Another question that's from the We're Not Really Strangers deck is, what narratives have you been holding on to that are not serving you well? And when I first went through my breakup last year, I realized I had a limiting belief that I am incapable at interior design because throughout my entire relationship, my boyfriend was always the one who made decisions about design, about the spaces that we were in. He loved it. He was good at it. He was always on Pinterest. He was always on Amazon looking for new things for the flat, whereas I had very little experience in decorating a space. And so when I first moved to London, I was terrified about my ability to furnish the flat, to make it feel like a cozy space. I knew nothing about lighting, about the things that I should have. But when I realized that that was the narrative I was telling myself, it allowed me to reframe it and realize that this is an opportunity to learn a brand new skill. This is a chance for me to realize what kind of spaces I want to live in, what kind of color schemes I like, how spaces make me feel. And I've learned so much in the last year about the power of a cozy rug in the right place. I think it's really important to question what narratives you're still holding on to that might be limiting your life. Because the truth is, you are capable and competent at anything that you want to be. You've got to adopt this growth mindset after a relationship that anything you feel insecure about, you can be good at. You might not be good at it yet, but you can do whatever you want without your partner. Equally, in my process of reflection, I realized I had a lot of beliefs about how I need to dress in order to be perceived as attractive, what it looks like to dress feminine. And I realized that so many of the decisions I was making were because of heteronormativity. I challenged myself to grow out my armpit hair, which was something that I never did while in my relationship because I thought that it would make me look unattractive. And it was so empowering to discover this entire new lens of self-presentation, to make choices fully based on, what I wanted to do with my body and how I felt empowered. So as you're going through this breakup, as you're doing your reflection, ask yourself, what narratives are keeping you stuck? What narratives are stopping you from realizing your true sense of self? And how can you consciously challenge or dispel them? Now that we've done the work, we've felt our feelings, we've reflected on what wasn't working in our relationships, we have a clearer sense of what we want in a future relationship, it is time for step 4, knowing how and when to open your heart again to new people. How do you know you're ready for love again, or even ready to just date or be romantically or sexually intimate with someone again? Honestly, this is a deeply personal experience. You definitely have to feel into what feels right for you. There are normally 2 main methods that people adopt when going through a breakup. The first is they swear off dating completely, or they immerse themselves back into dating culture. You've heard of this idea of rebound culture or hookup culture in order to get over your ex. Interestingly, over the last few years, dating apps have started losing their appeal, especially for Gen Z. According to a nationwide Axios Generation Lab survey from 2023, 79% of respondents who are college and graduate students said that they don't use any dating apps, even as infrequently as once a month. Also, have you heard of a term called boy sober? This was a trend that started in 2024, according to USA Today. Boy sober is a year-long decision to abstain from all things dating as an act of self-care, including sex. While the timeline isn't as important, the focus is on rediscovering what it means to be whole and fulfilled as an individual. The term is inclusive of any gender or sexual orientation, and being boy sober gives space to reflect, heal, and focus on what you want next from a relationship and for yourself. The results from this year-long relationship celibacy will start to unfold more as we get into the year. But the creation of this trend is very interesting evidence that young people are thinking more about the other sources of love in their life, opening their hearts to maybe platonic love, familial love, and not needing this reliance on romantic relationship love only. Despite a reported 90% of Gen Z's frustration with dating apps, this demographic are still the largest users of Tinder. So hookup culture, and perhaps then rebound culture, is still a part of many of our lifestyles. And why is that? How does this form of opening our heart up again allow us to heal? There was an empirical investigation into rebound relationships, which was a research paper from 2014 that stated, in 2 studies, we examined people who experienced a breakup, and we assessed their well-being, their feelings about their ex-partner, and whether they were seeing someone new. Analyses indicated that people in new relationships were more confident in their desirability and had more resolution over their ex-partner. And among these new relationships, the speed with which they began their relationship was associated with greater psychological and relational health. Overall, these findings suggest that rebound relationships may be more beneficial than typically believed, which is fascinating because I think I definitely have a bias against rebound culture. That's just my personal lens. I often think that rushing into a new relationship after ending something can be a distraction or an avoidance of feelings. This research does show that for some people it works, it helps you get over your ex more quickly. I like this piece about remembering your desirability because you're instantly receiving validation from a new person about your self-worth within romantic love. But marriage and family therapist Elizabeth Crane emphasizes that rebounds aren't necessarily bad. Their success hinges on everyone being on the same page and maintaining open communication. For both of these methods of getting over a breakup, you just need to make sure that you have properly applied step 1, step 2, and step 3 first. Rebound culture, as we have learned, can be great. It depends on how you do it. But it's so important that you've actually felt your feelings first, that you've made the time and space to sit with all the learnings and all the hardship that came from losing that first relationship. I think a lot of people are very scared of being single. People are scared of the loneliness that comes after losing someone you love, especially if you lived with them, right? You're used to all the habits and routines. You're going to sleep with someone else there. You're waking up, maybe you're making breakfast together. And so the shift of having to do that alone can lead you to feeling very lost within your solitude. But I think that lostness is really important to navigate because it teaches you so much about yourself. It can be such a vulnerable state where you're willing to slip into any new relationship just to get rid of that feeling of loneliness and lostness. But I would really invite you to sit in that feeling, to allow it to pass over you, and that will help ensure that the next relationship you enter is based on the right things, is based on someone who will help you grow and elevate you rather than just filling a hole within yourself. And it's really important to know that you should not act in a way that contradicts what you want in a relationship. In a 2024 article in The Guardian, Madeline Aguilar says, with a dating recession and app fatigue, Gen Z envies face-to-face pickups, but may be weirded out by direct gestures. After years of digital courtship, how do people really feel about asking out another human face-to-face? On dating advice forums, some users express discomfort at being asked out in person. Some fret that Gen Z has forgotten how to flirt, and others worry about coming off creepy if they approach someone. These stats cited in this Notion article back up those concerns. It's reported that 44% of Gen Z daters have little to no dating experience, with an overarching 95% worrying about rejection. So as a generation, we clearly have a craving for in-person interactions. No one wants to meet online, but it's like we've lost the social etiquette, the social skill set required to find our relationships in an in-person manner. And I think especially with COVID, so many of us have lost out on crucial years of learning how to interact with peers in an in-person way. So evidently there is this real craving for a natural, organic meeting. But in order to do that, we're going to have to get uncomfortable. We're going to have to put ourselves out there, go to, new events, or as they say, increase your surface area for luck. If you want to meet the right person and you want it to happen in a spontaneous way, you've got to be willing to go outside of your comfort zone. I really hope that this step-by-step guide can provide you with some evidence-based and healthy advice for truly healing from a relationship and a breakup in a way that allows you to find the next love of your life. Because guys, there is so much rubbish advice on the internet. I'm overwhelmed every day with just toxic advice. Like, I don't know if you've heard of dark femininity. Like, there's this amazing, insightful article by Camille Pidger called How TikTok's Dark Psychology Trend Rebranded Emotional Manipulation. And I just love to read a few quotes about trying to heal a heartbreak via manipulation and control so that you can understand the kind of messaging that Gen Z are getting. A subset of the community is dedicated to cultivating something called the dark feminine. The core idea at work is that you can drive men wild by intentionally withholding what they want, ensuring that you receive the attention you crave without experiencing vulnerability or rejection. That sounds like an immature recipe for disaster. While dark psychology promises greater control over the emotional outcomes of their relationships, the ironic reality is that you'll attract someone who favors the thrill of the chase over the vulnerability of healthy communication. We are a generation terrified of heartbreak, terrified of being hurt, and that leads us to feeling very compelled by trends like this that encourage you to stay in control through manipulation. If you have found that kind of content compelling, I would really invite you to sit with yourself to ask what you're avoiding by approaching relationships through a lens of manipulation. And instead, I dare you to go into new interactions with your crushes, with people you like, with a level of vulnerability. Let your guards down. Allow yourself to truly fall in love. Allow yourself to be hurt, because that is what true love is about. You have to risk potential loss in order to fall in love again. You have to respect the nuance of your process, find power in your authenticity for you, and not in instructive forms of gaining power over someone else. Please question any overly simplistic rules like, you can never be friends with your ex, you should move on immediately, make your ex jealous, make your ex miss you, try to make him notice you, get your mutual friends involved, don't give up on the relationship because love is meant to be hard. Guys, back to some non-toxic advice. How do you know you're ready to talk to your ex again? In my experience, don't talk to your ex if you're missing them. Don't ever come to them from a place of craving the relationship. Again, as I say, if you're craving the person, you need to have those accountability measures. You need to talk to your friends. You need to find support systems for your loneliness. But you should only allow your ex back into your life if you feel like you've truly moved on, if you've done the healing. Maybe you've fallen in love again. Maybe it's been a long enough amount of time. But I truly think that if you listen to your intuition, you will have clarity on your intentions in talking to your ex. Please make sure it doesn't come from just missing them. I'd also recommend recognizing what your relationship was built on. So if you had a relationship that felt very mature, was built on friendship, always quite civil and respectful, then you are going to be two people who will find the transition to friendship a lot easier than someone whose entire relationship was built instantly off of sexual chemistry, or was quite a rocky relationship, involved a lot of ups and downs and manipulation. That's going to be a lot harder for you to have an unturbulent friendship in the future. And if you have discerned that it is the right time to bring your ex back into your life, and that you think you have the kind of dynamic where you can be friends again, I really encourage you to bring them back into your life in a boundaried way. So have discussions like, what topics are off limits for us to talk about? Can we talk about our current or future relationships? Maybe you'll meet up, but never in a bedroom context, or never in a context with alcohol. And maybe you'll have frequent check-ins about how it feels to be in contact and how that might change over time. And I think if you are in a place of being willing to accept the outcome of what your relationship becomes, no matter what that outcome might be, then it's the right time. So, for example, becoming friends again and knowing that if it's too much for one of you and you have to break contact again, that you truly would be okay with that. That is a sign that you're ready to have them back in your life again. You're not attached to the outcome of what your friendship becomes. And just to leave you with something hopeful, so my ex, my boyfriend who I broke up with at the start of last year, most painful breakup of my life, we are now very good friends again. And I talk to him once every 2 weeks, and it just feels so seamless and peaceful and easy. And I think the reason that we have been able to transition to friendship so well is because we really respected no contact. I didn't talk to him for almost a year. We just respected each other's boundaries. We went away, we both did the work, we felt the feelings, and we are now both in a state to open our hearts again for new love. The more effort you put into your healing process, the more likely you are that you can have your ex back into your life in a healthy way. There is hope for the future of your relationships, I promise. And no matter what happens during your breakup healing journey, please be kind to yourself. Please be compassionate. This is a tough thing you are going through. Please treat it like it is one of the toughest things in the human experience. And I'm with you. I'm sending you a virtual hug. Please don't feel alone. There are hundreds of thousands of people just like you feeling the same thing. If you feel empowered to do so, please leave a comment on this episode with your experience so that other people can feel seen and heard with your advice. And I love you guys. You've got this. As always, we have a tradition at the end of every episode where I share a moment of casual magic from my week. So a little moment of mundane beauty in the everyday that just reminded me why I love being alive. The other day, I was just making my breakfast and I looked outside and there were these two squirrels playing together and they were running along the fence and it just looked like they were having the best time. And it was such a cold and grey day, but they just brought like such cheerfulness to the garden. It's very cute. And now we're going to listen to a moment of casual magic from one of you guys. And if you're interested in being featured, you can send a voice note with your casual magic to us on @casualmagicpodcast on Instagram. Also, I hope you know just how much I love listening to these. They genuinely make my day. So thank you so much to everyone who sends them in.
Hi Jade, I'm Seth and I'm from Belgium. So recently I moved out and that comes with new household tasks. And one of those tasks that I was not looking forward to was ironing. But then I was like, maybe I could just put something up like a video or something to make it more fun. And now every time I iron, I listen to one of your podcasts. And now, weirdly enough, I like ironing because I get to watch videos and listen to your podcast. So that is my casual magic.
As always, I like to finish every episode by inviting you to reflect on your past week and to set an intention for your coming week. So feel free to grab a notebook or a journal or your notes app, and you can also answer this in your head if you don't have a tool available. But yeah, I really hope you can take a moment to answer these questions and gain more clarity on where you are in life right now. Ask yourself, what went well last week? What are you proud of? What are some little wins that you can celebrate? And what is something that maybe challenged you this week? Or something that you would change coming into this next week? And then, based on this, what is an intention that you'd like to bring into next week? It can be one word, a phrase, or a theme. My intention for next week is exploration. So it's still, towards the start of 2025, and I'm thinking a lot about what I want to do this year, what I want to achieve, what I want to bring into this year. I really want to find a charity to partner the podcast with. So I want to do some conscious research in that direction. If you guys have any recommendations, please feel free to send them to me on Instagram. But yeah, just exploration to see what's possible this year. If no one has told you today, I hope you remember that you are enough, especially if you are wrapped up in the eye of the storm of so many hard feelings after a breakup. Please remember that you are worthy of love. You are going to find another love after this heartbreak, and it's going to be a beautiful love, one that serves you, one that elevates you, and one that you will be so glad you had the opportunity of experiencing. You actually need to leave your past relationship in order to open up an entire world of opportunities that you can't even see yet. Thank you so much for watching. Please send this to a friend who you think might need it. And please tell me if you enjoyed the episode or if you found it useful. And I'm sending you so much love. Oh, also, because we're coming towards the end of season 1, there is a little link to a survey in the show notes, and I would love to hear your feedback on everything to do with this podcast. Do you like the meditation? Do you like the journal prompts? What kind of themes would you like me to explore in season 2? Any and all feedback is welcome. Thank you guys. Stay tuned and stay magical. Bye.